ladies and gentlemen, dear guests and dear students, and of course everybody who is joining us via the live stream. It's my fault that we are starting 7 minutes later. I think it's 7 or 8, because we had so many people attending in front of the door, and I think it's great to see so many people here in our lovely Festsaal at the Wirtschaftsuniversität in person. So thank you for joining us, and a very warm welcome from my side. Now, my name is Tatjana Oppitz, and I am in charge as Vice Rector for the topic infrastructure, so for this most beautiful campus in the world, at least for me, and for a topic which is at least as beautiful as the campus, for me, the topic of digitalization. As part of the WU Matters, WU Talks, a series of really very unique panel discussions and lectures, our university has created a platform which facilitates sharing of knowledge and insights between academia and public. The objective is to address economic and social issues and, of course, to contribute to a responsible understanding and accountable economic action in order to solve economic, social, and ecological challenges. Scientists, researchers, and experts from the corporate world, as well as from public institutions, share their expertise on current issues with an interested public. So you are more than welcome to ask questions then to our today's speaker. But before continuing with my introduction, I would first of all like to thank the Department of Information Systems and Operations Management for organizing the lecture tonight. And here are a couple of our professors sitting, so thank you very much. And of course, I would like to introduce our today's speaker, Davor Svetinovic, who is Professor of Distributed Ledgers and Token Economy at our university. Davor Svetinovic received his doctoral degree in computer science at the University of Waterloo in Canada for his work in the field of software engineering in 2006. He did his postdoctoral work at the Technical University of Vienna and the Lero Software Engineering Center in Ireland. Later, he joined the MIT Masdar Institute initiative as a founding faculty member, which merged with 2 other universities to form the Khalifa University in the United Arab Emirates, where he continued his work as a professor. He joined our university recently in September 2021, so a very warm welcome to you, Davor. Davor Svetinovic research addresses the challenging issues in blockchain technology development and the related fields of cyber trust, security, and privacy. Now, this is a very fascinating field. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying this because of my history, working for IBM for nearly 30 years, before becoming a vice rector. It really is really very, very fascinating. Now, on tonight's topic, blockchain. Blockchain has an innovative approach to decentralized computation and assets management and has the potential to solve many problems in system scalability, reliability, security, and trust issues. And just before joining this meeting, I had a meeting with our Chief Information Security Officer, and we were thinking of what other solutions we could offer in fields with the blockchain technology. So this is really going to revolutionize the way we work and digitalize our processes. This type of trusted peer-to-peer interaction with data, and I said it already before, will and can revolutionize the way people access, verify, and of course transact with one another. And blockchain is more than a type of technology. It's not a single network. It can therefore be implemented in very many different ways. At the same time, the development of blockchain systems is quite complex and creates new, intricate systems engineering and cryptoeconomic challenges. Potential applications of blockchain technology are very diverse. The blockchain can track things like medical records, land titles, and of course even voting. It can include the secure sharing of data, money transfers, logistics, trading, just to name a few, and I'm not going to hold your lecture, so don't worry. It is a shared, distributed, and immutable ledger that records the history of transactions, starting with transaction number 1. It establishes trust, accountability, and transparency. But let me stop here, because I am not the expert, and I would like to hand over now to Professor Davor Svetinovic, who will give us deeper insights in the blockchain technology, and wish you all a very pleasant evening. And as I said, please don't be shy, ask questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Vice Rector Oppitz, for a kind introduction and a pleasure to be here. So before I start, many thanks to all the colleagues who have organized the presentation and all the audience who have come despite the situation that we are in. So it's great that we are capable to run live lectures again, and to the audience who is joining us now through the YouTube. I'm relatively new here, so only 2 months here, and I must say the city is impressive, the university is impressive, country is impressive. Combination of such a high quality of life with such a long academic tradition is really providing like an infrastructure for us to flourish with respect to the future scientific contributions and research contributions to the society. Now, switching immediately to blockchain technology, this is one of the, probably beside artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things, probably one of the most exciting technologies that we are currently developing and trying to employ on a wider societal and technological infrastructure. Since today's talk is for the general audience, I will try to focus on several things. The first thing is to pinpoint what is truly innovative and what is truly the main contribution of this particular technology. The second thing that I will do is present 2 or 3 of my recent research projects so that you can see the things that I have been doing in the past and how the follow-up discussion with respect to the future research challenges and the opportunities that we can work together on will lead towards something exciting, and both from the research perspective and the development perspective. Okay, my main research background is the work on the various multidisciplinary research projects. This is important just so that you can judge the context from which I'm coming to this particular technology. So I have worked on the various issues such as sustainable cities modeling and the development from the systems perspective, various cybersecurity issues, data mining and analytics of software repositories, software systems evolution and cloning, and then finally blockchain engineering and decentralized artificial intelligence, both from systems and analytics perspectives. So I have always tried to have quite a wide and broad scope from which I'm looking at the particular challenge that we are facing. Since when I'm interested in blockchain technology, I'm interested in it since 2009, so quite shortly after the time it actually appears. How did I stumble upon it? Basically, just because of my general security research, I have stumbled upon the code base and the paper and so on. And I will later discuss why I got so exceptionally excited about it. But what is important is that I have immediately started using it in various teaching and research projects since 2010, primarily as part of my software engineering course. So in 2009, 2010, students were already working on trying to port from C into in C++ into the C, dealing with challenging issues such as cryptocurrency for CO2 emissions trading, solar mining of the cryptocurrency. Can we detect particular solar energy signature that would hopefully replace the mining algorithm of the Bitcoin? Automated Bitcoin energy trade, intelligent trading challenges, no central price signal, exchanges, GCC market, and so on. Then we have also looked at it from the blockchain analytics perspective, such as doing certain forensics and community detection within the overall system. Now, what is so the first thing visible about blockchain technology? You probably get exposed to it through Bitcoin, which is a currency system, a new currency that exists. So basically money. And pretty much everyone, even at the level of the high school, has seen some basic functions of money, such as unit of account, medium of exchange, store of value. Okay? When you analyze it, when you analyze Bitcoin through these three main functions, every economist will tell you it's a crappy currency. As a unit of account, no one is really using it. Maybe certain small population. Medium exchange, it is very difficult to exchange it, even if you want to exchange it and use it. As a store of value, it's at minimum unreliable and very risky, okay? However, it is extremely, extremely exciting. Properties-wise, when you look at it from the property size, it's fungible, it's durable, it's divisible, portable. Okay, there it checks off everything. So property-wise, it's amazing. Functions-wise, it is not that exciting. So what is truly exciting about it? What has gotten me excited in 2009 after just reading that paper, so it was not popular as a currency, to start looking into it intentionally. The first major contribution of a blockchain is that in the cyber world, we have finally started to be able to do this simple transaction. What is so amazing about this transaction? We do it with money, we do it with pens, we do it with letters, we hand each other certain physical objects. What is so amazing about it? First of all, it's amazing in reality also. However, in this cyber world, it was not possible prior to the invention of the Bitcoin. Why was it not possible? Because of a certain property of this particular transaction. What is the property of this transaction? The property of this transaction is that once it is completed, only one individual will have this particular object in its possession. It is guaranteed that the person who was originally handing this particular object will not have it anymore in the possession. This is mind-blowing at that particular time. Today, we consider it as part of everyday technology because we have so many technological concepts and many people don't even see it as such. Okay, that's the first contribution. What is the second extremely exciting contribution? The second extremely exciting contribution is Bitcoin, or many other entities that we have created, is in effect anonymous decentralized entity, anonymous decentralized company, organization, society. Think about it whichever way you want. But all the participants in that particular organization are actually working together to produce a good. In this particular case, a currency. So it is a replacement for a central bank. Again, I'm not talking about it as money, I'm talking now about it as an organization. When you look at it, you can say again, oh, it is not that impressive. But let me tell you like this. If you are interested in diversity, about social improvement, about complex issues that will better our society and so on. Let me tell you, Bitcoin was the first organization that was the most open organization in the history of the world. Anyone from any point in the world, as long as they had some electronic device, could have joined this organization. This is the particular organization where you can join no matter which country you are coming from, no matter what religion you are, no matter what gender you are, no matter what orientation you are, completely neutral with respect and as such inclusive towards everyone who wants to participate. The third thing, the first organization that you are literally contributing, investing into without knowing anyone who is the partner and producing a certain good. You cannot be cheated unless you make a mistake with respect to the maintaining the safety and privacy of your wallet. The stuff cannot be taken from you. You are, you know exactly which contract you are subscribing to if you understand the internal workings of the Bitcoin, and so on. And you have 100% reliability that it will stay as it is. Okay? These are amazing properties which we have been trying to build into constitutions, organizations, non-profit organizations, and so on, never with such a success and such operational efficiency the way Bitcoin is operating. And never, ever with such a resilience that despite so many attacks and attempts to take over it, no one has really succeeded so far to do it. Okay. And third interesting thing, more of a theoretical perspective, we have never ever had a particular monetary unit that we knew with 100% guarantee that it is of absolutely limited supply. This is more a theoretical thing because gold is not such, fiat currencies are not such, shells or anything else that we have been using in the history was not, with respect to that particular property, achievable. So these are the three main things that are motivating me to do the research in this particular area. So the actual ability to transact in cyber world the way we are transacting in the real world, and to transfer things of the value and to keep them as such. The second thing, the tremendous possibilities with respect to the community organization without profitable things and the organizational things which are solving, in my opinion, many of the complex social issues that we are facing today. And the third thing is the limited supply, which creates this economic value underneath, which allows us to layer on top of it various other advancements, such as AI operational infrastructure, integration with the other systems, and so on. Now, when we switch and start looking underneath, this is a little bit more for computer scientists. What do we have underneath? Bitcoin, we have a protocol, decentralized peer-to-peer network. We have blockchain, which is a public transaction ledger. We have consensus mechanism, a decentralized mechanism of providing trust through the proof of work, mining. And then we have parts such as currency issuance and payment verification system. When you take a look at all of these are relatively old technologies that you get exposed to bits and pieces through the various undergraduate computer science courses. Okay? It's important to keep in mind that all of these are algorithms that have been studied in various settings and the technology that was applied in many other application domains quite successfully. When you look even deeper, you start digging even deeper, you start dealing with hash functions, which are well understood mathematical objects. You deal with hash pointers, hash pointer linked lists, which are blockchains, hash pointer binary trees, Merkle trees, digital signature, and public identities. So even when you look under the architectural layer, you see well understood and well-known computer science concepts that, again, undergraduate computer science students and early master's degree students get familiar with throughout many of the different courses that they do take. So again, when we go through the internals of the interesting things, what is the novelty here? What is the actual contribution? Why was the Bitcoin so groundbreaking? Because it is a systems engineering contribution. It's an innovative assemblage of all of these various well-understood protocols, architectural elements, algorithms, and so on. Genius contribution, but systems engineering contribution, which is often not so highly prioritized in research and in the development. More often you will see about the various algorithmic contributions and so on. Now, as a systems faculty, I will now mention 2 or 3 of our recent publications and the types of the research that we have done in the past, so that you get a feel about how this system approach and analytics approach is fitting together in order to build the base for the future developments. So the first paper is relatively recent, from a few years ago, improving Bitcoin ownership identification using transaction pattern analysis. So this is an analytic study done by a great student of mine who has successfully continued his career. What we have basically studied is, we have studied how the users get quite creative to even further improve and protect their privacy through the various complex types of the transactions that they have come up with. Some of the examples are peel transaction, sweep transaction, distribution transaction, and so on. So this particular study was the largest study at that point, and it was conducted on the clustering of Bitcoin addresses. And at the publishing time, the data set that we used was around 46 million Bitcoin addresses and approximately the same number of the transactions that we have analyzed. We have developed a new clustering approach, which was based on the novel combination of the known address clustering with the transaction patterns. And it was compared to the other existing clustering approaches, and we have produced significantly more homogeneous clusters. At the same time, we have found it to be a more scalable approach that can handle quite large data sets. So even with these relatively straightforward techniques, we were able to group and break a privacy of few particular entities that we have been paying attention at that particular time. So it is not private system, it is a semi-private system with many, many weaknesses, and that many participants are well aware of. Then we have moved and we have realized that the main advantage and what is actually making the Bitcoin, usually when you get new technological advancements, it takes some time to develop like really the amazing app that somehow leverages that technology. So for the internet development, you know, we have been having like web pages and many similar technologies, and then eventually Facebook, after many other failed attempts and few other companies, have established themselves as really leading technological groundbreaking apps or technologies that have emerged from this technological evolution. I would say that with the blockchain technology, the very first application that we had was the truly groundbreaking and of the tremendous importance application or the system that was developed as such. Why? Because the monetary system and the financial system is probably the most important social network that we have in the existence. It is the network that enables the transactions among individuals, entities, companies, countries and so on, and that is basically its existence is driving the economic, financial, and the overall betterment of the society and all the participants in it. As such, the Bitcoin network is a monetary network, and we consider this network in the context of this particular technology as a type of the social network. So with colleagues at that time from Purdue University and MIT, we have done the study, the antisocial system properties, Bitcoin network data analysis. What we have done, we have studied the overall network from the various perspectives that various social networks have been studied from. What we have found is that despite Bitcoin deviating in important ways due to the anonymity-seeking behavioral patterns of its users, it is still a valid type of a social network as it should have been. We have found from the systems perspective, it was observed that most of the anti-social incentives that are affecting critical system properties are existing primarily from the perspective of either trying to break or improve security and privacy. The social incentives behind these movements have resulted in leading to the formation or disintegration of certain network communities, which we were detecting through the clustering and the measures, or the intentional misuse of the overall system. These community alterations present serious threats to the various properties of the system that we have identified from the system's perspective, such as trust, participation, incentive, privacy, security, or the general usage ethics. Thus, what we have found is that it is truly not that much about the blockchain technology as it is about the consensus itself. But now, for those of you who are more familiar with blockchain technology, we are not just talking about the consensus that is achieved through the mining facility of the overall system. So not just the consensus on the particular set of the transactions that will be included in a block and added to the overall blockchain, but on the overall system within which this Bitcoin or any other blockchain system is existing, about the general consensus of what we are using all these systems for. And this is the area where we are moving from pure technology, computer science, and engineering to quite complex issues that are explored by the experts and the students and researchers in economics, law, social sciences, and so on. So this system-level consensus is also not anymore just about the privacy and security, but it is about an even more expensive construct, which is trust. Okay? And trust is really very expensive. This slide basically summarizes the various things about the energy consumption and what is often used as a means of trying to undermine the usability and the very existence of the Bitcoin. So, for example, the Bitcoin's current estimated annual electricity consumption is around 175 terawatts per hour of energy. Annualized global mining values is around 21 billion, and annualized global mining cost in terms of the just energy is around $9 billion for the operation. If you compare it to a country such as Austria, you see that Austria is basically for private sector, industrial sector, so basically all the operations of a well-developed economy such as Austria, everything is simply just 1/3 of this overall cost that is required to operate a simple monetary system that runs worldwide. To make it even more interesting, per capita, the average usage in Austria is around 7,000 kilowatts per hour, and just one particular transaction is one-fourth of this particular amount. So everything that you consume in 1 year, you need for 4 transactions on the Bitcoin systems. For 4 people sending few coins from one to another person. How bad or how good this is? First of all, it's really difficult to judge. The important thing is to pay attention that it exists in order to provide trust in this overall Bitcoin system, okay? But is this a lot or a little? It's difficult to judge, especially when you are comparing it to fiat currencies. Why? Because if you want to compare it, Bitcoin to a particular fiat currency, you have to take into account and estimate the overall cost of everything that is required for a particular country to be able to issue its own fiat currency. So these costs includes military power, police power, the administrative system, the legal system, all the enforcement of these transactions, and so on. I would say that for every single country of a size that its monetary network is comparable to Bitcoin, that particular amount is more than the amount of $9 billion per year. So you must have significant, actually tremendous monetary investment even in the production of something that on the surface appears like just as a simple fiat currency. Okay? Good. So if this trust is so important and so expensive, we have started doing what every researcher would do. Let me try to figure out what is trust. And in particular, let me try to figure out what is affecting the trust issues in the cryptocurrency ecosystem, such as Bitcoin. And we have performed one of such studies, and it was successfully published. And we have tried to even further extend that particular approach because we have detected something very interesting. What was interesting? The most interesting thing was that in the software engineering community, which is the main community behind the overall development of various complex technological systems, and in particular one small sub-community, which is requirements engineering, which is studying requirements such as security, privacy, trust at the user level, in all the standards that are existing and that are being used by various corporations in the development of their complex technological systems, not a single one had trustworthiness, trustability, or any perspective that you are taking on a trust as an interesting and well understood requirement or constraint or component or anything that has to be taken into account for the development of such systems. It was surprising because if you start digging deeper, many of the researchers have been touching when it comes to safety with respect to trust, security with respect to trust, and so on. They were pinpointing some issues, but there is no basic comprehensive understanding of what it is. And then when you start digging in the social literature and social studies, you have trust studied much, much deeper and much better understood. However, not from a perspective that us engineers or computer scientists can take into account effectively and use them in the development of the engineering systems. Okay? So, now we have identified trust as an important concept, and from our daily life, we know that when it comes to also social systems and many other systems, including Bitcoin, which was derived because of distrust with respect to the fiat currencies and the social systems that are providing such currencies, we are seeing trust and the decline of trust appearing and actually getting augmented more and more in everyday discourse. So what we have figured out is trust must be taken into account if we want to truly build successful systems. Energy and effort invested in building the blockchain must be there to preserve security, privacy, trust. You will see many, many alternatives of such systems that are proposing different mining algorithms. None is truly succeeding in replacing the proof of work, despite appearing much better from the perspective of lower value, better environmental impact, and so on. Why? It is not this heavy consumption of value that is needed to somehow provide this trust within a system. At the same time, we have not managed to find the appropriate economic theory which would explain us why there must be the consumption, why there must be this tremendous value invested in order to provide this trust and the value of the Bitcoin as a currency at this stage of the development. So when we look at the system, we have random work to build a chain plus network selection of the longest, most difficult chain. This is Nakamoto's practical solution to the Byzantine's general problem. You have core blockchain security trust mechanism that exists within a system. Amazing technological contribution. But how expensive all of this is? What about the value of all of these other blockchain applications that are appearing now as part of quite fascinating research projects and development projects? I would say that many of them are either not being justified as the application domains that require such a tremendous investment of the value in order to provide them to the society, or many of them are nothing more but standard centralized systems, which again are a technological overkill with respect to what is truly needed. So whenever we see private or moneyless blockchains, what I basically see is having fun with standard software, hardware, security, and privacy issues that are existing. Because most of such systems, you can much easier, much more cost-effectively, and much more securely develop using well-understood centralized solutions. Medication tracking, for example, or waste management in a city tracking. I have difficulty justifying that you need several billion in order to run the complete infrastructure underneath in order to make such applications. Because why? This trust issue is not of such tremendously critical importance for such a particular application. Okay? So this is one way of judging such systems. Now, for fully public, decentralized, and incentivized blockchains, such as Bitcoin itself, Ethereum, and many other applications that are truly open to everyone, we are dealing now, when we start developing them, with much more complex things in terms of trust, which are, in addition to software and hardware issues that Bitcoin is dealing quite well with, we are getting into the economics part and also into something else which is really hard to pinpoint, because the body of knowledge is simply not existing for the transfer of such complex systems into the cyber world. So the consensus is implemented in software and ensured by hardware. That is the situation that we have as part of the Bitcoin. And then the economic incentive must be done right. One of the reasons why pretty much no other competing cryptocurrency is succeeding is the part that the economic incentive is not anymore there because Bitcoin took that position. And the second thing is the network effect is missing, because Bitcoin appeared in a particular space and time when it was a novel technology and it kind of went through the initial stages and the network growth without the exposure that the new blockchain systems are getting. How can we repeatably perform something like this with respect to the creation of a new system is tremendously important and multidisciplinary open research challenge that we have to figure out and understand. The proof is that out of thousands and thousands of the alternate coins, no one is succeeding. Despite when you look at every single one of them, there are tremendous achievements, improvements, and so on with respect to the original Bitcoin system. So this network effect and propagation is extremely important. And how do we incentivize and justify them beside the existence of the Bitcoin? It's difficult to know. Moreover, we are now dealing with new type of a system which brings tremendous value immediately from the start. So they might be resilient and pretty much unbreakable from the beginning. Again, in order to generate this trust, it is very difficult to achieve something like that in the software world. So we have to develop the system that is resilient and also to be adaptable. That is, to pretty much absorb all the bugs, all the threats, all the fixes that you make throughout the life of such a system when you are resisting cybersecurity attacks, regulatory attacks, social attacks, and so on. How do we do it? Right now we are doing it in an ad hoc manner by pretty much genius developers that are standing behind such a system. But we are not able to do this in a predictable fashion from the software engineering perspective. So if you have a company, you want to develop new system to follow certain practices, to rely upon the average developers, it is very difficult to explain them in terms of requirements, design, and so on, how to do this. Tremendously important and beneficial research challenges and the development challenges, because if you figure out some of them, you can monetize them, you can improve significantly important systems and proceed with the future development. So the missing social constructs that we are seeing and that we are really having hard time pinpointing and understanding are how the social threats, planting of rogue entities, creating dissent, spreading wrong information among the developers, creating arguments, even the simple and normal things such as legalization in certain parts of the world, not legalization in other parts of the world, regulation and so on, how they are impacting such a system and how we can maintain this trust component of such a system which is providing the value that is necessary for them to run and to be maintained in the future. At the same time, while we are facing these basic issues that social science researchers, economics researchers, law researchers can contribute to the engineering community, at the same time, engineering community is moving at the groundbreaking speed with ongoing blockchain convergence with AI and IoT, which are two other areas that are currently being developed. And each one of them is coming with its own set of important issues, such as trust, and in the case of AI, even more advanced and more complex issues such as ethical issues, fairness issues, removal of bias, and so on. And IoT with its tremendously notorious privacy, security, and trust issues that is existing there. So what should we do? We have to really start thinking while we are implementing the various prototypes of the system, such as AI, blockchain, IoT platforms, and example Singularity Net. It is good, but we don't really have the basic concepts and issues resolved. So what is trust? Unfortunately, from the engineering perspective, there is no even a well-defined requirements model to start from. You are basically hacking, which is usually looked down upon as a development techniques because it just relies upon your originality, intuitiveness, and it is not repeatable. It is critical at the same time to tackle all the components in parallel, so we have to deal with hardware security and trust, software security and trust, social security and trust, and then the additional issues on top of it that are such as explainable AI, which is trying to deal with these issues in the AI domain, and the emerging behavior security and trust, which is very impactful for the evolution of such systems long term. What we have to do, we have to develop a trust infrastructure that can absorb these large costs. So whatever we want to develop on top of such systems, we have to leverage somehow the existence of systems such as Bitcoin and the other successful monetary platforms when they actually appear, and to develop and build on top of them the complex applications that we want to develop, with the hope to replace the traditional social trust-related services that many of them are trying to achieve and to automate and replace. AI is creating many new exciting socio-technical system engineering challenges and bias and fairness. The second thing is, when we are deploying them, all of these systems we are deploying with the goal of creating ultra long-term types of systems, which means they are supposed to stay and run for hundreds of years. Okay? If you have so much wealth in Bitcoin, you are hopefully, you probably will not be even able to manage to spend it, which means you will transfer it to your family and family and family, the way these systems have been working throughout the history. So even today you have inheritances that have went over 1,000 years, or I don't even know how long. So how do you build a software system that is supposed to run and be maintained and to be incentivized and to be reliable up to a point that it will exist 1,000 years ago? That you write a code, AI code, that will 50 years down the road appropriately move from your wallet, which is simply the address, certain amount of Bitcoins, to the address of your children, that they will later create and somehow through a particular oracle supply to this already existing system. These are challenges that have not been seen up to now in the software engineering or IT or software community as such. And the third important thing is making social science findings and results engineering ready. Almost all of these things and the systems that we want to use blockchain technology for require deep understanding of social systems that social scientists usually have, but engineers usually try to make some approximations, guesses, to build them into the system so that they can get it running before the colleagues can, without really trying to go deep into these issues. So I see this convergence of the two communities. And we have already started going in this particular direction, and we have worked on, for example, TrustFed, a framework for fair and trustworthy cross-device federated learning. Federated learning is a subset of artificial intelligence, which was again quite recently published in this particular venue. So, coming here, one of the main incentives for me was this recognition of the economics, social sciences, and these other areas of the expertise as potential areas for the groundbreaking applications of this particular technology, and the ability to come and join with the students and colleagues with expertise in these other areas so that we can currently together work on currently challenging issues and establishing what I'm currently doing, establishing this new institute that is going to focus on these fundamentals of blockchain technology and trying to see how they can successfully be applied to the economics, law, business, and social sciences types of systems that we rely upon and we cannot automate and replace, hopefully, with much more effectiveness, trust, scalability, and reliability. Good. So this was my talk. I hope it was general enough so that everyone finds bits and pieces that are relevant to your particular research or development interest. And I would like to open the floor for the questions from the audience from the YouTube and from the audience in the room. I guess we should start with any questions that we have here in the room and then deal with the questions from the YouTube. So any questions? If you have questions, we have speaker corner. Please come here because it's recording so that you can ask and that I can understand well what is being asked. Thank you.
You mentioned that trust is a very big part and why we're not trusting in a community of, and there's no like infrastructure for a community of trust and community of engineering that is developing the current Bitcoin. And my question is, in your research, why is it easier for us to trust one entity that claims to be like central banks, for example, that are doing all the work of managing a method of communication, which is money in that case, but it's harder for us to trust crowdsourced knowledge, given that crowdsourced knowledge have not failed us in the past.
Okay, thank you for the question. So the question is why we are trusting already established institutions. I guess we are trusting to them, first of all, because they are the most effective choice that we have with respect to many of the applications that we are dealing with, because they are existing and the lowest cost with respect to understanding the trust that they provide, we can estimate based on our historical experience. The second thing is often we have no other choice but decentralized institutions. And the third thing is there is tremendous amount of cost that is involved for us in learning and understanding the trust for the various new types of the technologies that are coming into the market. So Bitcoin is one of them. If it would be trivial to trust into something like Bitcoin, there would not be the opportunity for the speculators to get rich, because everyone would have an easy time with respect to understanding the trust that Bitcoin itself provides, and simply would have moved the financial resources from wherever they are currently having them to the Bitcoin as the platform. Here comes the important thing and the question that often people come up with, which is, should one speculate or invest with respect to Bitcoin? It is pretty much irrelevant. You can do it, you don't have to do it. But the important thing is that these people who are investing and actually speculating with such systems, they are doing us tremendous favor because they are the ones who are putting their resources into the scaling and testing of a system such as Bitcoin. So this often comes, when you hear speculators, it has some kind of negative connotation. But I would say, at least when it comes to Bitcoin, they are such a positive force, the same way as the developers and all the other communities, they are such a positive force, a group of people who are actually investing their resources to test this system, and they are being rewarded, at least up to now, for this investment and the trust in this system that many of us are not capable trusting. Okay? And even many of them would not trust them if you tell them, sorry, now your money is locked, you cannot spend it until 50 years later when you want to transfer it to your grandkids or something like that. Okay? So this is this feedback loop which is making this system more worthwhile, more resilient, more important, and hopefully more acceptable towards even more and more people who will participate in the system. Thank you.
I also have a question.
Yes.
What's your favorite crypto project at the moment, and what do you think will be the biggest thing in the future from a technical point of view, and what project does have all the things you mentioned today, the anonymity, the decentralization and everything, and the necessary trust to be the biggest thing in the future? And is there at the moment maybe a small project that could grow very big. So what do you have? Let's say somebody wanted to invest in something. What do you think will be the next 10x, 100x? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Unfortunately, if I would be able to respond this question, I wouldn't be sitting here. I would be one of these Bitcoin multi-billionaires who is now sitting in their computer, behind their computer and trading and buying even more, or investing in the spin-off, where I'm basically spreading my money over hundreds and hundreds of these projects, where one of them will pop up and succeed the way venture capitalists are doing. So unfortunately, I don't have that skill set, and that's why I'm an academic. But at the same time, me and even you are already investing something even more important than money, than resources. You are investing your time into understanding this cryptocurrency and this technology and everything else behind it. So we are already, all of us, investing in this particular domain, be it your time, be it your money, be it your development skills, and so on. It is like every single technology, it's here to stay. It is difficult to envision what is going to happen. Probably the most bulletproof approach to follow is what venture capitalists are doing with various technologies and companies that are doing, pretty much spreading your finances and basically expecting one particular entity or project to skyrocket in value while the others will disappear. But again, this is not the investment advice, and this is just random thinking and academic education. So I definitely think it is worth investing your time, your intellectual power, your development skills, because this technology is here to stay, and many of the existing applications, social networks, and so on will move into this area, and trust, with being in such a huge decline in so many spheres of our endeavor, technologies that are guaranteeing certain complex trust concepts and mechanisms will be here to stay, and we will monetize them, and they are even means towards the solution of many complex social issues that we are facing.
I have a second question. I don't know if I'm allowed for a second.
Please.
Okay. I have a second question. At the beginning of crypto, I have the feeling that these fundamental principles at the beginning, anonymity and decentralization, have been lost in the last time because big corporations, legislation, the government also like crypto, and crypto is slowly in the mainstream. And at the beginning, I just have the feeling that those fundamental things and the fundamental spirit of crypto is slowly fading away, because you know, big corporations are using crypto, governments want to use crypto, and at the beginning the idea was something to be a parallel society next to corporations and next to governments, and now it seems that they are together. What's your point of view? And do you think that there will emerge a project that can have the fundamental spirit and be accepted with government and big corporations?
Thank you for the question. Frankly, I think that every single participant, even the most radical opponent of such a system, just by doing very attacks on a system, is basically making it more resilient and stronger and more intellectually developed. And even such people are creating, or entities or governments or whoever you want, they are playing big positive role, even if they are not doing positive role on the surface. So simple things like that might sound positive, legalization, it might be brilliant on the surface, but such an additional exposure, such an additional judgment of this existing system is already a huge interference, because what is the relevance? Why should it even be legalized? So even by legalizing it, you are effectively doing the attack, which has to be responded to somehow through the resiliency of such a system that is suddenly becoming a legal system, that it was not up to this point. It's equivalent to, for example, a hacker finding a small loophole. So these are all of these economic impacts, social impacts on this technology. The beauty of this technology and the beauty of the communities behind this technology is that they are making these systems evolutionary more reliable and resilient. If you decide to legalize it, they will build it and fit it in such an environment. If you decide not to legalize it, they will fix it, build it, evolve it. It will not fit. If you change your mind, you legalize it again, fine. It will handle even such a situation. So all of these things perfectly well accepted, and we need them to develop such systems to the full potential, and then easier, when we understand all of these concepts, it will be easier to spin off and to do the same in the other spheres and the other application areas when it comes to such systems. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I have two questions. The first one is because of the halving and the energy consumes of Bitcoin, will the halving be a solution for reducing the energy consumes and, I don't know, bring back to the normal PC just for validating the transaction and so on? Or will be the miners, will still be the miners so energy consuming even if the mining process will be over?
Sorry, can you repeat? I don't think...
every block you receive a reward.
Okay.
And the mining reward, because of this reward, the mining process still go on.
Yes.
And in the future, there will be not the reward anymore because the number of Bitcoin is fixed.
Okay.
It's possible that, yeah, there will be a reduce of the energy consuming by the miners.
Thank you. Okay. So this question is so at certain point, there will not be any more mining, at least in the theory. However, at that time, that's projected to 2100, I believe. So we still have around 80 years of mining in front of us. Again, an important issue. However, whenever we mention these issues, somehow we consider this as a really bad thing that is built inside the system. Why do we consider it as bad? We have heard that energy consumption is bad. Okay, taking this particular approach, many people start hating this particular system when they see the numbers, if they are concerned with the energy and so on. Many start forbidding it. You cannot run it in this particular country. However, what I would say in that particular case is try to look at it from as engineering perspective as you can do it. One of the potential solutions to something like this is, instead of trying to regulate it, punish it, or use somehow violence towards this particular community and people who are doing it, why would we not start digging deeper? Maybe realizing that, okay, energy, even at the production stage, approximately 50 to 60% of that energy is lost. So what about if we are maybe inventive, especially if we own all these hydropower, coal power, wind power, and so on, production facilities? Why wouldn't we try to capture this lost energy, because it's anyways lost? And why don't we become the dominant miners inside this whole community? And then maybe reduce the taxation or maybe subsidize the development of the green technology, because we are basically just focusing on this energy that is being wasted. I'm not sure that just this, that what I have tried to brainstorm now as a potential solution and a potential project, I'm not sure that any single government has already engaged in, because up to now I haven't seen it. But pretty much every single government is owning tremendous percentage of all the energy generating facilities. And almost all the power engineers, they know about tremendous loss of energy at the very production stage, at the transmission stage, and even at the end stage where the machines are working. So all that we need is somehow refocusing power engineers and thinking how this lost energy at the production stage can be captured, and you have immediately the dominant force that can overtake all these systems and replace all the end mining users because they don't really have access to the production power plants, at least not the majority of the production power plants. So my approach is always, can we think about the new innovation that will solve this particular problem, technological innovation, rather than thinking in terms of regulation or certain external forces that will somehow educate or force particular communities or producers in a particular direction. I hope this answers your question. Okay.
I have another one about IoT.
Okay.
You talked about IoT on Bitcoin blockchain. I know that the IOTA is a coin working a lot with IoT. I didn't know there was also Bitcoin involved in this technology.
No, IOTA is another platform which is building up on the blockchain technology that is basically leveraging the various application domains that are relying heavily upon IoT. So I'm aware of its existence, and this is one of the technology that is diving into this extremely complex field that is connecting blockchain technology with IoT and trying to provide the solutions in that particular domain.
Okay, so far Bitcoin is not involved in the IoT, or yes?
It is not
the
involved,
blockchain of Bitcoin.
But what I would like to point out is that whatever application domain, for example, supply chain management tracking, where you are shipping goods or devices around the world and you have various IoT devices that are tracking such systems. If you are developing them on top of the blockchain platform is computationally and distribution and networking very heavy compared to the various centralized solutions that are existing in that domain. So do you have the sufficient economic incentive to create something like a fully open blockchain that will actually fund and maintain such systems long term, up to a point that major world corporations and society can start relying upon them? That is the thing, because even with a relatively simple application, which is Bitcoin, which is basically from this user to this user transfer 3.5. It's as simple as that. It is so trivial compared to the AI applications and IoT applications. Even for such a system, it is still not widely accepted after 13 years of the existence. And even today, you will raise many trust issues. Many of you will not want to invest. Many of you will invest just because of the speculation potential and so on. But it is, even after 13 years, it is not sufficiently solid technology that we can basically transfer the whole worldwide system or even a country-based system just on Bitcoin. Now, if you want to deal with shipment issues and the applications, you will have so many bottlenecks when you start using blockchain technology compared to the various centralized solutions or semi-centralized solutions that can be arranged by few major shipping partners, because that domain is pretty much several companies that are collaborating with each other. So that is the thing that we have to understand, how to build into it this value and trust in order to provide the success and the reason of using blockchain in many other domains, such as the domains that are enabled by IoT and AI. Okay. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Thank you.
My question would be in regards to energy again.
Yes.
And we know that blockchain is like a decentralized technology, but there is no like data center that has to pay for all the energy.
Okay.
But rather than like the miners when it comes to mining. However, you mentioned that the transactions also consume quite immense amounts of energy. Now, who is going to pay for that? Because obviously, like when I'm going to pay with Bitcoin for my Tesla, or I would have paid for my Tesla with Bitcoin back in the day, then I would just pay the price for the Tesla and not for the transfer of money from my account to Tesla's account.
Okay.
So the question is, where comes the money that buys the electricity to do this transfer?
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay.
So the people who are running this particular system are, even without the mining activity, they are using certain power to run these nodes, right? Even you yourself is using certain power to run the nodes just for the sake of the account in which you are keeping certain amount of bitcoins that you want to use for the various transactions, okay? So what the system is guaranteeing you now is that eventually, even if you don't want to pay for the transaction, you want to transfer half a Bitcoin to Tesla in order to have the Tesla sedan delivered to you. I'm guessing it's around $40,000 to have it delivered to you. Most likely you will not have to pay for it. However, the issue here is, why is that money still inside your wallet? And why are you able to transfer that money actually from yourself to Tesla? You have to do it because of this existing infrastructure, okay? And in this existing infrastructure, you have millions and millions of other users who are also having certain level of value in their wallets, okay? If what you have in your wallets is of certain value, then it is obviously of interest to another entity who would like to come inside and basically collect everything, okay? So there are security issues. There is the issue of that some particular thing that you are keeping in your wallet of being of certain value in a decentralized system where you don't have anyone to guarantee what you have there. So something has to happen, and someone has to defend that system, and someone has to enable that system to run, and someone has to maintain that system, and someone has to profit from that system, because why would I do all of this if I'm not gonna get any profit? So you have this built-in mechanisms which has actually created the incentive for people to join, to use their computers to provide this network that exists right now. This very incentive is in the core of the network effect that has led to the establishment of the full-blown network and to the success of the Bitcoin as it is today. So not only that you are relying upon the participants today, you are relying upon all the historical participants inside this system, and you are relying upon even these speculators who have thrown in their cold cash to speculate, to basically get the few numbers that you have in your wallet to be of a certain value that today it costs only half a Bitcoin to buy that Tesla. So it is not just mining, but the mining is the core thing, which was basically you must provide some value for the system to run. The speculators who bring in new wealth just through buying Bitcoins, they are doing effectively the same economic impact that the miners are having. But the question here is, once you get and stop mining, you can rely upon this external flow of the money, you can rely upon the fees, you can rely on many other potential uses of the Bitcoin at that time. But mining was necessary to create this incentive in the very early stages when no one knew about it, and to drive it even today, 13 years after, to motivate you to join. Because today, if you manage to solve this one block and to basically enable 2,000 transactions to be performed, you get rewarded by 625, around 60,000, $375,000 you get for basically performing 2,000 transactions, that is on average today in one particular block. So it plays a huge role in this complete incentive that you are basically participating in, And not just mining, not just money, but even your time today here, your intellectual effort, your development time, everything is moving it forward. And we don't understand the true impact of each one of these components. And as such, it is very difficult to replace it. And the guys who are coming up with much cooler mining algorithms, who are coming up with much cooler currencies in terms of more advanced features, are having hard time to create this network effect, to establish their new project and to make it groundbreaking and even more important than Bitcoin, that from many other lenses today, when we have even more advanced, our understanding of such systems is looking relatively primitive, but it's still dominating. So I hope this at least partially answers what you have asked me. Thank you. Thank you. Fantastic.
So, hello. I have a question about the 51% attack. What do you think about it with quantum computers growing in the future? And will it be a danger for Bitcoin and proof-of-work systems?
Quantum computing?
Yeah, the 51% attack. Like if you use quantum computers to produce so much power, so you get 51% of the chains. So you choose your chain, not the other one.
Okay, so this is one of the open challenges. So 51% is relating to 51% attack, which is basically implying that you are having the majority of the voting nodes in the overall Bitcoin network. It is a type of effect that when you are having such a tremendous power generating and computing tools combined together, that you will overtake and then do something. Now the question is what you can actually do when you have 51%.
You can lose trust.
What's that?
You can lose trust, basically.
Not necessarily. So when you have 51%, what you can become pretty much a centralized provider such as MasterCard or Visa. In what sense? Not in exactly 100% comparative sense, but in a sense that you cannot really, and not just because of the regulation and legal system, you cannot really now start stealing money. So that's not the worry here. The only thing that you can do is you can start deciding which transactions you are going to include and which transactions you are going to reject. So you are becoming powerful in a sense that you can, for example, decide to isolate all the IPs that are not basically in United States, and you effectively move the whole Bitcoin network to become only United States based. Let's say if the most powerful center inside such an environment is such, then you can achieve that particular effect. You will only basically process transactions that are originating from the nodes that are currently located in the United States, and you will ignore everything else in the rest of the world. You cannot steal from anyone. You cannot really reverse transactions up to any meaningful level, but you can only limit the applicability of such a system and what it is truly being used for. For some people, it might still be interesting to continue, or entities, it might be still interesting to continue using it. For some, not. But what would happen is the tremendous investment that you have invested in building such a system, you should have better invested it into creating a new credit card company or a new traditional bank or something like that. Because you are coming here just to make an extremely expensive system something for what the centralized solution is million times better approach to do. Many of the mining communities have, I believe, up to now already approached that threshold, and they have basically scaled back exactly because if they have pushed further, they would have basically devalued themselves. So you have incentive, if you have such a tremendous power, I would say better go and create a groundbreaking, brand new credit card company or a completely novel banking system, because there is so much opportunity there also, rather than using this tremendously complex technology to create purely decentralized and then just to make it centralized.
Okay. And I have a second question.
Yes.
What's your opinion on switching on Ethereum from proof of work to proof of stake? I'm aiming here on the validator side, because like on proof of stake, you will need to have 32 Ethereums to be a validator. And when there is a situation like I'm not having this 32 Ethereums, but I want to validate the blocks, so I need to use a pool. And when the pool will fail, I lose my whole stake. So what's your opinion like on switching to this, in my opinion, kind of not a little bit less trustworthy system than proof of work is?
Okay. What is the effect of it up to now? Has it overtaken Bitcoin?
Like not, but still Ethereum is very growing with the smart contracts idea, and so it's a growing platform, and could basically maybe like make the blockchain a little bit again untrustfully like a few years ago.
Okay. So it will maybe find its niche again because it's second most successful currency that has also leveraged this network effect and everything, that at this point it can do certain shifts. However, what I can tell you immediately is that at least 50 other alternative coins have much more advanced and much more sophisticated and much cheaper and neater and more open approaches for mining than what is the particular configuration that is currently existing in the Ethereum. So you get again the same question, shall they succeed in overtaking this? So ultimately the answer here is not the particular mining mechanism that they are providing, but many of these other variables which we have not pinpointed and which we don't have good understanding of. So all of them, from my perspective, even proof of work is perfectly fine, proof of stake is perfectly fine, mining prime numbers is extremely beneficial. However, prime coin, for example, no one is paying attention to it. So we have to understand many of these things, that in addition to your novelty that you are bringing to mining algorithms, how do you put it in this context of creating new initiative, creating new environment and so on in a predictable way, so that your bet is more than just single person bet with respect to the development of such a system long term. Good?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for the good.
Good evening. My question is, if you think that our future financial system will be so decentralized that we won't need banks anymore, that banks won't exist anymore because you don't need a third participant for a transaction anymore?
Okay, thank you for the question. Basically, our financial system has gotten, in my opinion, centralized because of the various conveniences that centralization has given us over time. So fiat currencies, they had positive impact, centralization had positive impact, many of these technologies have had positive impact. The Bitcoin is finding a particular niche where it is resolving some of the misuses that all of these positive technologies have actually had over time, and replacing some preferences that certain users inside the system and inside the overall network have. Now, to ultimately succeed, it will never be because of the coolness of the system, intellectual groundbreaking contribution, the technology itself. It will always boil down to the cost and use benefits of such a system. So if it truly shows that over time the cost of the participation is more beneficial than keeping your assets somewhere else, it will win in the market. If the society starts valuing more the trust benefits of the decentralization, or maybe the lack of random inflationary forces and just relying upon predictable inflationary environment that is existing inside the Bitcoin, that will win. So it will depend on many of these questions that will be resolved with the time that pretty much no one can predict at this point, but technology itself is not going anywhere. And technology will stay, and the decentralization will stay, and it will serve its purpose, whatever it ends up being. Many speculators will get rich, many will lose all their money, and many of these cool applications that I have discussed up to now will succeed. So that is what we want to focus, and if you have intellectual power, time, power, investments, it is one of the exciting areas where we are really advancing, and I think it is good to stay and to use your resources in such an environment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
What do we have to do for Bitcoin to become a global monetary currency to substitute, for example, euro, dollar? Because if you look on transaction speed, like Visa has like 1,700 transactions per second. Bitcoin, I think it's like 7. So we have to solve something for it to become like everyday transaction currency. Mm-hmm. And like what can we do? How do we solve this? Do we like keep Bitcoin as a store of value and just lay some other projects that overtake the transactions, like the transaction systems, mm-hmm. so that they substitute it? Or what is your opinion?
So that particular approach is already showing to be more promising approach than spinning off various other cryptocurrencies with maybe more transactions per second and so on. So basically what is happening is that the market itself is starting to use Bitcoin as more of a store of value because it's current price, and somehow settling all of these transactions on the side, and maybe at the end of the day doing one major transaction if it really has to be done. So 2 cryptocurrency exchanges or providers are already doing a bunch of these transactions from many wallets in a probably centralized fashion, and then only at the end of the day sending 35 Bitcoins from this exchange to this exchange and so on, from this bank to this bank. So it seems that the trend is to continue in this particular direction, which would provide an economic mean and a more clear direction in which to start developing all these other things on top of it. So if it does indeed spread in the overall economic financial system as such an entity, then we will get to a point that we are clear about its usability in that sense, and then instead of developing new blockchain systems, we will somehow start thinking about simply just communicating with Bitcoin as reserve currency and doing our cool AI smart contract applications where they are transferred from one entity to another, and maybe in a year, after 5 million of them have been transferred and successfully executed, there is one major transaction from the company that is providing to another entity that is providing data, let's say, for such operations. So it is a perfectly valid direction, and it seems that it's succeeding in the recent times. And it is quite different than what many of the other existing alternative coins in the last 10 years have tried to achieve. Good.
Yeah. I mean, we still have some time to go, so. We have a lot of time.
Plenty of time. Plenty of time.
Thank you.
And I believe this technology is only now accelerating more and more, and it's perfect time to join and to do your contributions within this domain. So thank you for the question.
Hello. Hello. In regards to a government that uses alternative energy, I think El Salvador would be one of those, using volcanic energy to produce Bitcoin, just as an addition to a point mentioned before.
Okay,
in regards to my question, I think it was GDPR that recently came out as legislation, also in Austria, and I think one of the main achievements of it was that we have a right for data to be also forgotten. And here, my issue with Bitcoin is that actually it proposes the opposite. It is a store of data, like endless for all of times. How can Bitcoin or is there any kind of science or going on asking this question, the right to be forgotten, also in regards to blockchain data?
So you are saying blockchain is not GDPR compatible even right now?
I'm not a GDPR officer, I don't really mind. So it's more of a real philosophical question, how to solve this problem.
Okay. First, I just arrived to Europe, so I'm not really familiar with that particular legislation. It does make sense from the privacy perspective, and as we all know, internet does not forget. So that is the true situation. Now, how much the legislation can help in this case, I'm not sure, because we all know that internet does not forget, no matter what legislation there is. What it might lead to people being smarter with respect to what they are doing from now on. So you probably want to keep that particular thing in your mind when you are committing your transactions to the blockchain. However, the actual design of Bitcoin as it is relying upon the fact that the blockchain history is maintained. And I don't think there is legislation or there is no engineering endeavor that can change it or that can adopt it in order to function in a way that it allows it to forget all the transactions that have existed in the past. But it is completely open challenge for the new, more complex types of the systems or spin-offs developed in parallel with Bitcoin or as a new applications that one, I guess at this point, has to take into account, because the actual deployment will not succeed because it can relatively easily be stopped if there are such legislations already in law and used in practice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, thank you for your very interesting presentation. My question would be, you said earlier that cryptocurrencies based on the blockchain don't really exclude people from the usage of it, which gives it a big advantage over currencies. Because, for example, the US dollar cannot be used by Cubans or Iranians. So Bitcoin would be open to everyone. Now, the question would be if other countries, especially poor countries where people don't yet have bank accounts, which are actually millions of people, like in El Salvador, where Bitcoin was introduced as legal tender just recently. So the main idea of doing that, or one of the ideas at least claimed, was that people don't have yet bank accounts, so they should just start with Bitcoin, because for a bank account you need a social security number. Millions of people don't have a social security number. With Bitcoin you don't need all of this. Is Bitcoin, therefore my question, is Bitcoin a great chance for developing countries?
I think it would be huge contribution once its value is truly stabilized. And once it starts resembling to a currency, in a sense of a currency as something that if I can buy today for 57 Bitcoins a car, 20 years in the future, I should be able to buy a car with 57 coins. That would be the biggest and the tremendous contribution to such environments that are underbanked or have no means of effectively dealing with money. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because all the inflationary forces, the investment world, the financial world, everything around the finance is of such a complexity that most of the population, due to either their educational background, intellectual background, or however you want to call it, it is unfair towards them to expect them to profit in such highly volatile systems. I'm not capable of profiting in such a volatile system. So if my country would currently switch into having Bitcoin as the only legal currency, that would be horrible, because it would force me to put all my assets into such a tremendously fluctuating currency that today it's half of its value, tomorrow it's like 4 times, 4 months down the road it's 70% down, and so on. I would have heart attack within 1 year, I believe. So relying on a complex financial instrument such as Bitcoin or any other things that you might want to use, including the currencies of different countries in a country where your local economic system has already established currency which is reasonably well maintaining the value, I think are not of the tremendous benefits to all of the aspects of the population. But the promise of the Bitcoin is that it will eventually become a relatively stable currency. So all of these speculators, all the big market participants, all the small market participants will force it to become a currency that is not really fluctuating and maintaining its value with respect to the inflation rate that it has. At that point, I think it will be a fantastic solution. But we have already had many of the currencies which have been succeeding in that area. So once a market player such as Bitcoin is existing, many of the fiat currency providers might just decide, okay, I'm not playing anymore with my currency, I'm just keeping the same inflation rate, and at that point it is becoming of a relative threat to the Bitcoin. And even then, most of the people will still start thinking, okay, this currency is now pretty much the same as Bitcoin, why would I bother joining to Bitcoin? At that time, I think everyone will go with the convenience, with the most cost effectiveness, and ultimately it will not matter with respect to which one you are using. And at that time, we will achieve this effect that was the original imagination and the original advocacy behind Bitcoin in the first few years after it appeared.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So as you mentioned, the value of Bitcoin and this network effect is crucially dependent on people believing that they can sell it for a little higher price in the future. But you mentioned many other application fields like IoT or AI, where the value of the technology is not mainly derived by the fact that you can sell some kind of a coin a little later. How do you see the network effects in a situation like that? And how do you see Bitcoin's prominence in this sense?
Bitcoin's prominence because for running such a decentralized system where you are suddenly participating with your computing power, with your electricity power and so on, in providing certain service for solution of a particular problem, it is very unpredictable that you can maintain it long term with so many participants that it is truly staying at the level that can provide the performance that is necessary by such a system in reality to fulfill all of the all of the benefits that the technology is promising. So one of the applications might be the recycling of not used medicines that are basically being thrown in the waste every single year. So it is a very complex problem, but it is difficult for me, or maybe for you, to figure out why would you provide certain computational power and why would you contribute to such a system if you are not having certain profit by participating in such a system.
That's clear, but if you think about a system where the profit of participating is not coming from the currency itself, from the coin, but from the utility that you get, which is rather a proof of stake kind of algorithm, where your utility is that you have a system that you personally also contribute to, and it works better than any other kind of system for that particular person. Then why do you still think that you need this kind of financial incentive that's in the coin itself?
Unfortunately, in this particular case, it boils down to the human nature and profit-seeking incentive. I do understand that many people are being invested in many other endeavors, such as advancing education, fighting against poverty, improving the climate, and so on. But whenever you are starting to create complex organizations, especially organizations that are running and solving certain problems, the only, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but the most successful organizations that we have in the society are pure profit-seeking organizations, where you are dealing with people who are also joining with you for the pure profit-seeking. And I think in many of the areas of economics, they have been even running the studies where they have been choosing, if you are choosing 10 random partners to start a new initiative, and some of them are because of their voluntary contributions towards the big goal and so on, and some of them are because of the pure profit motive, it was pretty much always chosen, I cannot quote where it is, and forgive me if I'm even quoting wrong, it was always that people who are starting to drive particular initiative are always choosing profit-seeking participants in order to successfully fulfill their mission and the goal. In addition to all the infrastructure costs that one has to justify.
Sorry, I don't want to hold up everybody, but I would have another...
sorry, just one more comment. So good intention plus profit will outcompete only good intention. Let me put it like that. So most of these, if you find profitable, good intention that is fulfilling your profit-driven intention, you will probably outcompete pure voluntary beneficial, or you will maybe outcompete even pure profit-based intentions. So let me say they probably complement both the most, but I think pure voluntary without this significant profit part will always fail than some of the two, if you can provide it by the design. Let me put it like that.
And in a system where you have, let's say, both of it by running the system and also be a participant and benefiting from the value, like being an IoT provider, which also provides the computational power for the system and the devices itself. There might be a easier barrier or a lower barrier to achieve these network effects. Would you agree?
There you go. If you have two complementing streams of benefits, then you are probably having a winning combination compared to any single profit-driven motive that you are coming up with.
Thank you.
So very good point. Thank you for the question and comment. Thank you.
Okay. So first of all, thank you for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. What I realized though is how little I really understand about cryptocurrency and all of this. And this really excites me since I came here having heard basically both extremes, like it's amazing and oh no, don't touch it, it's a scam. So what would you say is like the best way to educate myself in the most objective way possible? Are there like any, I don't know, like any reliable news sources that you would recommend, or what's the best way for me to dive deeper?
First, start understanding how the Bitcoin functions. Mm-hmm. I have tried on first few slides to come up and to explain what are the main technological, social, and so on benefits without even touching the issue of the money itself, because I truly believe that money is on the side, but it is one of the components of the overall system. Start understanding the actual structure and start understanding the communities and how people are trying to adapt. This is beneficial no matter if you are coming from pure technical background or if you are coming from the economics, law, and social sciences. What I want to say is, if you are merging these two, in the upcoming years, whatever you do, it will be much, much more beneficial for you, for the society, and so on, than if you are just sticking to your own research and development area, be it in pure social sciences or be it in pure technical sciences and algorithms world and so on. That is what is also driving me to come, for example, here, to combine my technical background with the economics, law, social sciences background, to think in terms of what are how to understand these systems better and how they can be leveraged better to improve various social and human issues as much as we can together by joining efforts and investing time, resources, and so on inside it. So study from both sides. Dig into code, even if code is not your area. Mm-hmm. Technical architecture of such systems, figure out limitations, figure out advantages, constraints, and also try exploring it from these perspectives of the surrounding systems within which these systems will be embedded. Mm-hmm. So you have to start thinking cryptoeconomics rather than pure economics. Mm-hmm. It's far in the future, but if economics is your background, start thinking about cryptoeconomics, hypothetically about the world where only cryptocurrencies exist, about the world where both exist, and so on. Some of the previous questions have touched upon these, and the reality will probably be messy, as it always is, but you will deepen the understanding, and you will even, if not directly, then at least indirectly contribute to someone else who is actually working on the development, implementation, and the deployment of such complex systems. So that's my suggestion.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much for all the excellent questions. Okay, I guess this is it. Any questions from the YouTube? Okay, perfect. Okay. So thank you for all your time. It was great pleasure to speak to a full room, and looking forward, if you have any other questions, you want to collaborate, you want to study these concepts, take my courses, let me know, send me email about your projects, about your ideas. Let's work together to do something exciting and beneficial for us, university, and society in general. Thank you very much. Thank you.